Rolling.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And is there a roll call?
Vukovic. Here.
Andrew Franklin's here. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And I'll second that. All in favor on a voice vote?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, then let's get the ball rolling. Item 2A.
So we wanted to start with the first item, which was the facilities future planning update. Ms. Weiss and we met with a company that worked with our neighboring districts just to get ideas of next steps moving forward. We had a facilities study done by PSI in 2021. And so we looked at that and to look at the information that we had from there. And it gave us a lot of information about the condition of the building, but it did not include any of the cost or any of the repairs or any of the work that needed to be done. So we looked at that. And then the next part of the overall facility study for the district is we wanted to look at what is our growth in our area for the district. So we want to do a applied population study, which looks at the birth rate of our community in both the projections for the 5 years. And then also we wanted to do a little bit more in-depth study with a consulting company called MD Roffers. A couple other districts in the area have used them, but it gives us a really good understanding of the impact of the future residential development and demographic change on future student enrollment and how that projection is occurring. Is it with the capacity of our existing schools? So is our enrollment trend going up in the elementary with Parkway? And then it also works with our local village and municipal members to look at what is any future real estate that's coming, just an assessment of the overall demographic and the economic trend. So I wasn't sure with the board with the cost, because it's about $15,000 to have that more in-depth study. If that would be something that I would take to the board, or because it's not necessarily one that other groups would do, so it wouldn't be an RFP, but I would still take it to the board to have the consultant approved, correct?
Yeah, I think we would probably add it to the December board meeting since it's part of the, data gathering process. And the biggest piece is that we'll be able to then, I think.
I don't know what the biggest piece is because she's. Hold on, Allison, you're cutting out. Can you hear me, Lindsay?
I can hear you. I think Allison froze though.
Do you know what her biggest piece was?
I think it was just that we wanted to move forward with getting the capacity study done for the birth rate and then the educational advocacy of our buildings and our facilities. So does it align with what our district goals are, and how does that improve our instructional needs? So we wanted to put together an RFP for a facility study done that would be able to work off of the facility study that we already had done, and it would give us the additional information that we're missing from the original one, which predominantly is the cost of everything. I linked in board docs the RFP that we put out for the firms to do that. And again, it's just to get information about having them go through our buildings and look at the facility study that was done and what recommendations or what information they can provide for cost and just future planning.
So would this be a facility? So there are two things that, kind of come up. One is the facility study, but in the other part of this, hiring a construction advocate. And I mean, is that the same thing or is it two things?
No, it's two separate pieces. So you have a facility study done to just get information about the district and like our property itself, like what is the square footage of our property, what could it handle for building development. Then the next step would be is once we have that information, is deciding what are the scenarios that are the best to suit our district needs for future planning. And then if, for example, we were to decide to go forward with a referendum, then you would move forward with a construction manager that would be able to give additional costing. But we want to see what the actual needs are of the district before we would go to that step.
Okay. I mean, in that performance study, obviously, it's good and bad. It doesn't have a lot of pricing in it. It probably should have been done with some other disclosure, and now it's a couple years old. So I think an update's probably a good thing. I think that Tamika had indicated, and I'd kind of build on it. I'd hate to go back and reinvent the wheel because we do have some data from there. And so, I mean, I guess, and it sounds to me like maybe that's what you're saying, that in essence, we want to validate and expand on, what that original one was. And so to me, I think that that's a logical first step. As far as that second step, which is hiring a construction advocate, or whatever you call it, I don't know that I'd want to address that right now.
That's far after. So from what my understanding is, we need to figure out, and tell me if I'm wrong, but first of all, we need to figure out, number one, what's wrong with our buildings, which I believe even Kevin, as he looked at it, had said that it's a good sound of what is needed. Yes, it's only a year old, but nothing has changed that much in the report. Now we need to look at cost and also needs. And I am very supportive of doing those studies because if we right now, even as we had the issue with was it K5 last year? Mm-hmm. Just having that, if we have even a spurt growth in Parkway next year, we're going to have an issue. I mean, if it's not just K5, but if a bunch of third graders come in or a bunch of second graders come in, we're going to have an issue. And we're trying to make sure that we take care of that. But this has happened a few years in a row. And I think the faster we get the information to make decisions, whichever that decision is, I think this is a good step. So I am not opposed. I know on the council, on the council side, sometimes that actually brings new stuff to this, that when we did our I think it was the city plan, they hired a consultant firm to look at what the needs were, what they wanted, how they wanted to zone stuff. So I think this is about the same thing where we are looking into what the needs are, needing that plan for growth or the projection for growth. And I know Larry at one time had a smaller version of this done every year to figure out how many people are going to be, you think we're going to project in the school district, but we need a bigger one now, because I think that data is a little bit outdated, right, that he was using. Mm-hmm. So I am not against sending this up to the board to, well, actually, we get our next meeting. We'll have by the next time we have a meeting, I believe, correct, if I'm wrong, we'll have the RFPs. We can look at the RFPs and then send them all to them, but then make a recommendation to the board on, after we interview, why we feel we should use this particular firm. But we still have another meeting before the actual need for a board. It won't be on the agenda until January.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay, then I guess there's no other discussion on that point. We jumped into 2B, and I just want to make sure we don't skip over Allison's executive summary. Allison, are you still there?
I am. Yes, the executive summary pretty much just goes over the 3 agenda items, so we're good, Andy.
Okay. All right. That's fine. All right. Then do you see anything with the green team?
Yes, so attached in board docs is the phase 2 of the outdoor learning space that Hannah and Jen Clark presented to B&G a couple months ago. So they're looking to move forward with phase 2. What they're really asking for is about $25,000 from the district to each year for the next 3 years to do that cost. One of the pieces I know, Andy, you had asked about at one of our meetings is the funding. So one of the things I wanted to just share is that I've been working with a company that specializes in grants, because grants are just very underutilized, and a lot of private foundations and different groups like that will do grants for school districts. And so we applied for a grant for the green team and the outdoor learning space that could potentially cover 100% of the cost of it. So we're in the preliminary phase of it. They're reviewing it. I should have an update in like the end of January, beginning of February, as if it was approved and for how much. But I am looking for guidance from the board about how you'd like to move forward. My recommendation is, I know the timing is that they are looking to get a commitment by January, but I think with having a facility study done and just waiting for the funding, I'm hesitant to commit to funding at this time. But I wanted to ask the board for feedback.
Well, I guess from my vantage point, I mean, I'm hesitant to commit, but until we know, what we might be able to get. I was going through the slide on the budget, and I was a little bit confused about, what the costs are, because there's some things that are slashed out in the document, and so I did have some trouble kind of following along with that. I also think that using grants is a great idea, and really, I mean, if you're hesitant, that tells me that we ought to just wait and see. I don't want to put a hold on it. On the other hand, it's winter, so that's a good thing. So I guess I'm okay with holding off for a little bit until we get some more information.
My opinion is you hold off. You wait until that grant. And I also want to know what the city is bringing, because from what the study, what they said is that they were having different partnerships, and also with the city of Glendale. I want to know what the city is putting in.
Which don't seem to be panning out in the document. Yeah.
What did you say, Andy?
Oh, which, I mean, it looks like the city, like some of the things that they expect the city fund were crossed off, on their expense sheet on the PowerPoint. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to know more as well.
Yeah, there's a breakdown in the PowerPoint presentation that's attached in board docs that talks about what the cost is, how much other parties like the city or any other vendors that would participate would be willing to put forth. And then the third column shows what the district would be responsible for in cost.
All right. For some reason, I don't have the budget. Did I miss it somewhere?
It's linked
Or
in
I
there
don't have the
administrative
PowerPoint. Said
it's
it's
under
on board
administrative
docs?
content.
That was that was in board docs. It was in the presentation.
I don't have it.
I can
for some
email
reason.
it to you too.
All right. Yeah. So for me, two things. For me, because I am also on the city side, and this has never got brought up to us. So I'm wondering, I want to see what they're doing. If they don't, that's fine. And if we get full and funded, that's fine too. But I don't want us as a district to assume that something's going to happen when it doesn't. So we can keep planning, and it's not that I don't want this to happen, but two concerns that I have is, number one, we still don't know what our budget's going to be like statewide, the funds that are coming in for the state. We have some major things we need to take care of in this next year. Like, we did not budget for this possible $15,000 that we may have to spend to do the study, but the study is very important to the future of the district. So I'm kind of trying to prioritize our willy-nilly fund. That's my expert word that I use for monies that we can move back and forth, but that's my say. So I don't think it's just a discussion item, and we'll just sit back and wait and see what these grants come up with.
Can you guys
And
hear me or
then-
no?
Yep.
I was just gonna say I agree with slowing down a little bit and seeing how some of this stuff pans out first. That's it. That's all I was gonna say.
We're still trying to support the green team with other initiatives that they're doing, some smaller ticket items, some like hydroponic farms, which are a little bit smaller, and just things within the school. But we're just trying to keep an eye on the cost and, you know, what we're putting forth towards it. So
one thing I would advise, that even if we're doing small ticket items, like 500 there, 200 there, 100 there, if it's starting to add up to $4, $5, $6, $7,000, then I want to know, and I think the board would want to know about that, because
Yeah, I agree with that.
so it might be small ticket items, and you know, a $400 thing is nothing. But if we
Mhm.
did 7 $400 ones, then all of a sudden that's, you know, $2,800.
yeah, this is just putting like the recycling bins in the lunchroom.
Okay, so it's action, not
Yeah.
necessarily monetary.
Yeah, I mean, you have the extra cost of garbage bags.
Right, but that's different.
Minimal, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I also look at it from the perspective of I want to make sure we're being equitable across all of our clubs, because you know it's a great initiative, but we have a lot of different clubs that we offer in our district, and what we put forth in one club, I want to make sure that we're being supportive of all of our clubs in the district.
Gotcha.
Okay. If there's nothing else, B&G director position.
Yes, we wanted to provide an update, as we discussed at the end of last school year. For the 22-23 school year, I took over the director of operations role, and Kevin and Mike are the daytime, I guess you would say, facilities managers for this current year. And then we have an internal candidate that was interested in also pursuing that. And there's a facilities certificate management program that's offered through WASBO that anybody that's looking to become a director or just in a career in the buildings and grounds, it's really good classes for them to take. It gives them a really good, like, solid foundation. Half of our staff have that certificate, and then an internal candidate is going through the program right now. They've completed several of the modules, and the way that they're laid out and scheduled, it would take about 18 to 24 months to complete that. So it would, we're looking to do one more year of the current setup, which from feedback that I've had from the team and just from like overall staff, it's working well. Nobody's felt overwhelmed, and it's just been a very collaborative effort. We talk and meet regularly on a weekly basis. And so we'd like to continue this setup for one more year for the internal candidates, to just get more experience and more knowledge.
Let me ask you a question. So this would basically take, your current role and Kevin's current role and create a new position, or at least go back to how we did things before. So we would basically be reassigning the work from you and from Kevin to whoever, be it this internal candidate or someone else, whoever this, we would be creating a new position that would reabsorb it, and we'd have the same position that we had under Jim Beckman. That's what we're saying.
One of the things that we kind of talked about as a team, like internally, was just the way that the setup is and what makes sense, and looking at the strengths of our team members. And so in the past, like Mr. Beckman was the director role, but the finances still went to my predecessor. And then the day-to-day operations were still Kevin and Mike. And then Jim kind of oversaw all of that. And so we were just trying to figure out, if you take strengths, like Kevin's strengths are like he can look at something, and if it's broken, he can fix it. Like, he knows the maintenance and the piece of it. And another internal candidate has the experience with the custodial side. And so how do we bring the strengths of everybody to, and then also put in the financial piece? So the person would like to have a little bit more time to gain more knowledge to get a better understanding, just because like the admin side of it is a little, I think, overwhelming.
No, I understand. I mean, I guess, but what I'm saying is we basically be reverting to how we did things before.
I guess we'd like to bring a couple proposals and see what the board thinks. I mean, we're not opposed to that, but I think there's some creative things that could happen, I guess.
So, I want to make a couple of observations. I mean, look, I mean, we certainly thought that, and I still believe, that our setup for how we did things this year, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad to hear that, it's going well. Obviously, you have some self-reflection. And so if things can be better, I'm happy to hear that we're talking about that too. But, first of all, I just want to reiterate my own confidence how, we decide to proceed. Secondly, I just kind of want to observe off the cuff that the other, and I'm not necessarily in favor of consolidation. I mean, I know that there's some history with consolidating a buildings and ground director across the feeders in Nicolay, and that it's been tried. It didn't work in the past, and that it's being tried again with everyone but us. It may be something for us to look at. So I guess that from a position of fiscal responsibility and cost savings, we might want to look at that as part of one of those evaluations if we're really looking at that. But the other thing is that I felt that, and so this is where some clarity I think needs to be kind of gained. I mean, in my mind, there's still a lot of sense in having a hierarchy of a buildings and grounds person, reporting to you directly, because you're the administrator and you're the financial person, and that's really important. And so there's a certain hierarchy there. What the board didn't have much of under the old regime, this isn't, Mr. Beckman at all. This is just how the role was set up, and I'm sure how it continued for as long as it did. But, he was responsible for negotiating leases and whatnot. And he also did a lot of, the groundwork for, getting quotes and so forth, and the contracting, for repairs and upgrades and capital expenses and everything. And I always got the sense that most of that financial end of the role was vested in him as opposed to our business director. And that just may be how things have been communicated too. But I guess I would want to have kind of if we go forward with this, kind of a clarification again of what your role would be and what this role would be, maybe in a job description, or whatnot. And let me give you just a quick example of that. So we don't talk a lot about in board meetings the rent and the other expenses of Good Hope School, for example. Now you come to us and you'll let us know when there needs to be expenses and what we're doing in the building and so forth. But in terms of the leases and the rents and the so forth, the day-to-day stuff, the board has not traditionally been involved in that area. And so that's like one thing where, it's not education, but on the other hand, it is the business of the district. And so who does that role and how that role gets communicated to the board? And just thinking offhand, that's, part of what I'm, interested in understanding more, who would take that role on. Because right now I know that if I have questions, I can go to you, right? There's a clear line of authority, and that's a good thing. If you divide this position, or if you structure it like how it used to be, there's that overlap again between a business position and what the building's ground director did. And I guess, you might want to set up a fence or, just kind of be careful about what those respective roles are going to be. That's just kind of me going, and rattling off some ideas in a nutshell. I'm not beholden to one thing or another. I mean, I think what works well and what doesn't. So, we should follow your guidance on it. But those are things I think I'd want to hear, because I think that the board is going to want to be interested, in just having that oversight, for whatever that position is.
So
Tina,
just a couple of things. this is something that's going to be looked at in the school year of 2023, 2024. So what you're saying is you would, for 2023, 2024, you want to, it's best in your guidance to do this one more year where you get the stipend for this, and then we look into how we want to structure it as we go in starting next year, maybe next, September, October, looking to see how we're going to vamp this for the 24-25 school year. Now there's a couple things that I kind of like the structure we have now. Yes, it's just for me, it seems like the people have taken ownership of the departments that they're in. They have taken those ownerships. I've talked to a few of them and they seem to work well with you and like what you're doing. If it's overwhelming, I get it, and you want to, step aside, but I really want to see how this works one more year for sure. The other part, I really wish other people would also train, because the one thing I don't know who is the internal candidate, but I do not like having one internal candidate that may take this job or is being trained. And once he's trained, all of a sudden he may not want it or she may not want it after it. And then we have put all our eggs into one basket, which I definitely don't like. So I would encourage more people on the staff, if they are interested in doing this, to get that training as well, because then it just helps our district overall. But I still don't necessarily, in my mind, I don't necessarily see and this is just my opinion, we need a buildings and ground director. Because I think it just, you have spread out the work, and to the point that we have a point person, which is you. We have heads of different departments that have owned that department, and they intertwine with each other. I know Kevin does maintenance, but he will work with somebody else to help, with custodial parts of it, or landscaping, or whatever it may be. So right now, I'm glad we're doing it for another year. That's just, I think we're saving tons of money by doing this. You still get your stipend, but we're saving insurance money, health insurance. We're saving tons of money for this position. So, and I always say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's so, and we can, yeah,
Sorry.
and we can, I think it's a more of in-depth conversation. Thank you for bringing this for me, because this is my baby, the B&G. I love B&G. I will always be on this committee. I will fight people for this committee. And that is like, I really understand the depths of what we've done, because this is a committee that I've been on since day one, and I have watched it evolve. So this is my favorite, Andy, my favorite committee.
Even in spite of me, that warms the cockle shell.
Can I just add one thing? I wanted to.
Oh, I'm not the leader. Never mind.
Is it okay, Andy?
Yeah. And then I have one quick follow-up question. Go ahead.
So I have one thing or two things I wanted to point out is that we did have that conversation with Nicolay and the area districts last summer about joining the consortium, I guess. But one of the reasons that we did not is because of the team that we have in our district. Like, none of the other schools have, and I'm not even just saying that as biased, because I think the team's awesome, but the skill set that each and every one of them have is what makes our day-to-day run so smoothly and makes it like doable for me to do this role as well. And just being in the district and having such a strong pulse on what our facility needs are really has helped me with the financial aspect as well. And then the other thing that I just wanted to point out with the team professional development. So we do our rounding meetings with each of our team members, and just to do a check-in to see how things are going, if there's anything they need. And I'm always been a very strong advocate for professional development. And so there's a couple other staff members. So the training that the internal candidate's doing is something that anybody that's doing buildings and grounds should do, not just like somebody looking to be a director. So we want to offer that to everybody because of the knowledge that you get from that training. So it's definitely being offered to the entire team.
And I was going to ask, so are we paying for that, and what's the cost of the training?
So we are paying for the certification. I believe it's 1,500. I can double check.
For the full 2 years or 18, 24 months? That's it?
Yeah, because it's a module of classes. So it's 8 total modules that they take, and then it's offered at the conferences. So it's essentially like you're paying for a conference of $250 for each conference.
Okay, that's great. That's a bargain then. Especially, to the extent, I mean, I'm sure it follows our, reimbursement, plans, and I don't want to get into a debate about that, but if it's helpful and it's inexpensive, it sounds like a good thing. So, all right, anything else?
Bring up the reimbursement part of it, because I don't believe this is a reimbursement thing. This is direct education for them to be knowledgeable. I don't think it's added credits to get a master's or anything. This is what they do, and that's 2 separate things.
Correct.
Yeah.
It would be like speech paths getting training, or counselors going to the counseling stuff. So it'd be similar to that.
Right.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I will go to item agenda 4, I believe, which is visitor participation. Visitors can begin a non-agenda item at this time. State law under board policy, maybe yada, yada, yada. Is there anyone? Katie just going to listen in silence. Okay. Same thing with Kevin.
We gave her crap before, so it's okay now.
Oh, don't give her crap.
love
All
you.
right. Then with that, is there a motion to adjourn? You can do it.
So moved.
Come on.
I said so moved.
Oh, I didn't hear. All right, I'll second. On voice vote, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Lovely meeting. Talk to you all soon.
Half hour.
Thank you.
That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you.